Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to aGLIFF 33 Prism and another live Q&A. I am just so giddy and ecstatic about this upcoming half hour. I can't stand it. We are here with director and producer Susan Sandler and comedian and subject Julia Scotti. Let me just give you a brief little rundown of who these two ladies are, if you don't know. Director and producer Susan Sandler wrote the screenplays for the Golden Globe nominated film Crossing Delancey, Friends at Last on CBS, as well as projects for Sony Pictures Entertainment, 20th Century Fox, Disney, and the list keeps going. Her directing credit includes Ensemble Studio Theater, NPR's Playing on Air. She is also on the faculty at NYU, where she has guided the Fusion Film Festival, celebrating women in film, TV, and new media since its inception. Susan, so excited to have you here. Welcome and thank you for being with us.
Thrilled to be here.
Also joining us is the subject of the film, comedian Julia Scotti, who has had a vibrant and moving comeback as the crazy old lady of comedy. Last seen 20 years ago as Rick Scotti, as both a headliner and playing on bills with the likes of Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, and Jerry Seinfeld. She has had a rebirth in both life and comedy, now as Julia Scotti. She is, again, a nationally headlining comedian, former teacher, author, speaker, and woman of transgendered experience. Julia was a quarter finalist and a fan favorite on season 11 of America's Got Talent on NBC back in 2016, and currently has a Showtime special called More Women of a Certain Age. Julia, it is my great pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Todd. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's more funny women of a certain age.
I'm sorry. More funny women of a certain age. I love it.
No, because there were two specials. One was funny women of a certain age. This was more funny women of a certain age.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, you're on it. You're on it. That's all I care, Julia, right?
I try.
Susan, I want to start with you. I think I'm correct in saying this is your first time directing a documentary. Is that right?
It is my first time out. Yeah.
So, Crossing Delancey, kind of early in your career, it strikes me that was kind of a semi-autobiographical story. And I wonder, did that experience help you at all when you started to approach directing a documentary?
What a smart question, Todd. That's really, really smart. Crossing Delancey was very highly autobiographical. I wrote about my world and my grandmother and the Lower East Side and the relationship I had with her that was really essential to understanding who I was and what my happiness was going to be. And the whole idea of family and what family is and what who the people are in your life that matter. And thinking about any craft in writing, whether it's documentary or narrative film, it's really about finding the center of the truth, where your character lives and what her story is and what her truth is. And that's what guides me in everything I do.
Wonderful. So I have a little confession to make.
Sure.
I sometimes sit on my couch in the mornings with a cup of coffee and get on YouTube or social media and cry to America's Got Talent auditions. It's, I think, maybe one of my obviously gay traits. And I really remember vividly the first time that I watched Julia, your audition on America's Got Talent. And quite frankly, losing it on my couch. I needed a couple extra tissues, I think. I was surprised to find out that this project had started before that audition. When I watched it, I was so excited to see your name pop up as a documentary, and I thought, well, surely, they must have filmed this after this audition and this, sort of newfound fame or newfound rise to fame. I didn't have at all the background of your story. But I wonder if this is kind of about to either or both of you. What brought you two together for this project?
Susan, you want to handle that, or should
Yeah.
I?
We met through a mutual friend who's a wonderful talent stand-up and also producer of stand-up, and her name is Jane Condon, and she is an executive producer on this film. And she brought Julia to Nantucket to perform, and I always hang out with all the great people that Jane introduces in her comedy sets, and I was just fell wildly in love with what I saw Julia do on stage, and we hung out afterwards, and we just connected. You know how that happens in life. You meet someone and it just feels right. You know, this is somebody I knew I wanted to work with in some way. I didn't know what it was going to be yet, but I just knew she was somebody that I wanted to work with in some creatively rich way, and we figured it out. We began by thinking about a one-woman show. I belonged to a theater company in New York called Ensemble Studio Theater, and I had helped Jane, our mutual friend, work on a one-woman show, and worked with her dramaturgically on that and helped her produce it. And that was the plan, to do that with Julia, to help her figure out a show and move that along. But the more we met and talked, the more I realized her story was so rich and so complex and so filmic that it wanted to be a documentary. So I dove in and I said, let's go. And she said, okay.
And Julia, did you get the call from America's Got Talent once you had started filming, or how did that come to be?
You know, I'm trying to put that in chronological order. I believe we had already, Susan and I had already spoken. It was right around the same time, right, Susan?
Yeah, you had just gotten the first calls for the first meeting, right. Which I think were in June, but we had started talking maybe a few months before that.
Right, and they all kind of, dovetailed.
Yeah.
The AGT process takes several months, really. And so you go out for your initial audition, but you may not know. I think it was February the following year that we actually found out that it was going to be on the show. It was February 2016, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the stories that I really love about the backstory is really kind of about this whole documentary and the two of you is that you're both really making a resurgence in your careers as women, quote unquote, of a certain age. How was it to take that journey together, and how did that impact the process of creating this documentary?
Can I jump in on that one?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, I'll go first this time. Susan Sandler is a dynamo. If Susan Sandler could generate electricity, she could light up the Eastern Seaboard. Being a comic, we always hear people tell us, well, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to do that for you. You know, as a comic, I've become jaded. It's like, yeah. But she is true to her word on everything that she says. And so she inspired me all through this process to push, to push further and to be more truthful and to find archival footage that I didn't even know I had. She's amazing. She's an amazing, amazing human being.
You know, we're looking at a love affair here, so it's just been a great ride. You know, I talked to people friends of mine who this is a 5-year process, and the idea of, well, when are you done? Well, when is it finished? Well, where is it? And indie docs are what they are. You know, it's about passion, and it's about following a story that you care enough about to tell, with all the resources you can build along the way, but no one is giving you the assignment. It is not funded. You know, everything has to be cultivated along the way. But central to that is the engine of the story. And the engine of the story here is Julia, and my relationship with Julia, and her willingness to go on the ride, to be open, and to let me into her life as a storyteller. And it's just been energizing. You know, I don't think about this as a first time event. I mean, I think storytelling is storytelling, and good storytelling is all about understanding, you know, what the map is and taking your audience on a journey that is worth their time. And that, you know, is an organic process in documentary, because life is messy and unpredictable, and we sure found that out.
Yeah.
But I don't think we thought about our ages particularly in the process. I think we
No.
thought about the vital nature of the story we were telling, and we identified, I think, a lot generationally in terms of all the stuff we know and all the stuff we've lived and all the cultural pieces that we relate to. I think don't you think, Julia, that's been really...
Yeah, I think part of our mutual natures are that we don't think about age, that we live in the moment, and if we see something that we want to accomplish, we do. And, you know, without giving a thought to, oh, am I gonna, you know, like during the filming of this, I mean, I almost died, you know, and even that didn't stop us from filming it. We had a crew show up in the hospital. So there's the answer to your question right there. No, age had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Well, I think you may have just answered my next question, Julia, but I wondered if there was anything that you went into the filming schedule and said to Susan, this is off limits, and if that changed at all during the process of the filming.
The part about almost dying was something that I considered, you know, couldn't we maybe put it on hold until I'm actually working? And then I thought, you know what, if I'm going to be honest with what I tell her and allow her to show, then I have to be honest with everything, for good and for bad. If you want to film me in the hospital, film me in the hospital. Because there actually a story came out of that about the physical therapist who kept misgendering me, and so it actually made it into the movie, which was, so I'm glad that, you know, I didn't make that off limits.
Right. Susan, you talked about this process taking 5 years. That seems like a daunting task to me, to sit down with 5 years of footage. And I know you didn't film for 5 years. The whole process was 5. But how do you identify the moments in Julia's life from all that footage that you shot that seemed to really encompass who she is? And then how do you tie them all together in such a way that really does give the viewer a sense of her entire life?
Well, the storytelling process is about having a strong story map, you know, and that's something I teach in my screenwriting classes, is understanding what the journey is and how you're going to lead your audience on that journey. And what I did was, you know, what I say to my students is just, you know, get pregnant with the story. Just fill yourself with everything you can about your subject. And I dove into everything. Julia was generous enough to give me complete access to everything. Her journals, a novel in process, actually a biographical novel in process, every piece of writing that she'd ever done, all this beautiful archival material, some of which was really like an archaeological dig, because I would find in the middle of a demo tape, a comedy demo tape, some extraordinary home movies, because there was not a blank tape to throw into the, you know, what was the old-fashioned VCR. So the idea that I just consumed as much information about her as I could, and out of that, the story evolves. And I worked with, you know, a story map outline. I worked with a wonderful editor named Marcia Moore McKeever. We sat in the edit room together throughout the whole process, just figuring out the story. And I just, you know, I lived with Julia, and I still do every day. Her face is on my screen. So, you know, I was very pregnant with this story, and finally we've given birth, Julia, haven't we?
Finally, it was a 5-year labor, yes. We took deep breaths, though,
Yes,
and pushed.
And we're so happy to be here at aGLIFF. I so admire what this festival is and what you're doing, and that you guys are doing it in this very challenging time. You know, it's wonderful, the spirit of this festival and the spirit of the community that you build. And we're just so honored to be here with this story.
I in particular, I mean, I'm 20 years ago when I transitioned, I felt like the signal, I felt so alone and so lost, and there was nobody in the world like me, you know, and there was nowhere to turn, there was no network, there was no internet, really. And to see this, especially for trans folk, this thing happening, all these wonderful things happening, it really is fantastic, and I thank you for doing this wonderful work, and I thank Susan for loving me enough to do the film.
Well, I really do appreciate those kind words about the festival. It has been excruciating labor of love to pivot this year, and just I could not be any more proud of our team and everything that they've done to really continue to keep that sense of community. Mm-hmm. That was one of the things that was really important to our board. So I'm thrilled to hear you say that you feel that. Julia, I wanted to ask you, Susan alluded to this a little bit earlier, but you pull out some old footage of your old Rick Scotti stand-up in this documentary, and you sit down, I believe, with your son and watch some of that. I wanted to ask you about that process, and if that was something, how long had it been since you had watched some of that? You seemed pretty genuinely shocked by some of the jokes that you told.
Well, there was that one. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. If you could just expand a little bit on how viewing that footage affected you.
There was the piece you're talking about had to do with me giving mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to another man. I was still Rick Scotti at that point, and I was struggling with my sexual identity at that point. I was. And what I did, instead of embracing it, was I went just the other way and tried to become super macho guy, annoying guy. And I said, man, I said some pretty homophobic things in that bit. And when I saw it, I had not seen it since probably maybe late 80s, early 90s. I just wanted to reach into the screen, choke that person, and say, "Stop doing that," which I think I did on screen with my son, and we both were kind of taken aback by it. It's amazing what time can do to a person. So I apologized for it.
Well, your relationship with your children at this point in your life it's a big part of this documentary, and one that I found really interesting and touching. Really, at the beginning, you and your son Dan are doing a presentation, mm-hmm. and he calls you mom for the first time on camera.
And the last time he hasn't.
Yeah. Well, I just thought that was such a touching moment to happen sort of organically. Wonder if you could describe that moment for us.
It completely took me by surprise. They had always sort of, avoided calling me anything, and it was more like not a "hey you" kind of situation. But that night when he said that, I was like, you saw my reaction. I just welled up, and it was a word I'd always dreamt about hearing. Even as Rick, I wanted to be the mom in the relationship too. And I have that maternal thing going on with me. I will treasure that moment forever. So, and whether he wants to believe it or not, I'd rather mother him, but he needs a father too. So. He's a good man.
We do have a couple questions coming in from viewers. Emily says, your reaction to the physical therapist was a great example of how to respond to someone's negative behavior, putting them on the defensive.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your caring and humor help change minds, whether they are formed by prejudice or just ignorance?
I've always felt that way in the face of ignorance or anger, you know, you don't accomplish anything with anger. And my humor has always been my best weapon. And if I can make you laugh and make you see how ridiculous you are, and be serious at the same time. As a teacher, I had to do that with my kids all the time, and you know, just to make the point. And so I feel like, yes, my humor in that particular situation, and on stage too. I mean, because I talk about being trans on stage with the, you know, and my object is to make them laugh, but it's also to make them think.
Well, you know, I mean, you personify vulnerability to me, and it really feels to me like at this stage of your life, you know, no other way than to live your truth. Catalina, who is watching, says, was it scary to be so vulnerable? And what advice do you give to others about being vulnerable? Would you give?
It's hard for me to give advice because that's my, you know, it worked for me. But what I can say to you is follow your heart. And if you feel like you want to open up to people, you almost have to at some point, because if you don't, you're going to be, you're trading one prison for another prison. You know, the prison of your gender that you were born in, and now you're going to live a life in the gender that makes you feel comfortable, but you're going to put up this barrier and not let people in. I mean, what's the point then, you know? So I live my life open, out. You want to be in my life? That's wonderful. If you want to hurt me, go to hell. Take a hike.
I love that. Susan, you've written and worked with a lot of strong personalities in your career, such as Kathleen Turner on Friends at Last, Bette Midler, the Florence Greensburg story for TNT. How was it working with Julia? And I will say, as gentle and caring and vulnerable as she is, she strikes me as opinionated and strong-willed as well. And I just wonder how that experience differs since you were documenting her life versus writing a screenplay.
It's a very different relationship, you know, because she's giving me the gift of letting me in to tell her story. And it's not a relationship of being directive, it's being a listener. And being a listener inside of her life is the gift she gave me and trusted me. So at the core of everything is trust, you know, at the core of everything that's worthwhile in life is trust. And that's the journey that we were on. I think, you know, in narrative film, there is the discipline of a script and an agenda and all of the politics, certainly with, you know, studio projects of everything that all the people you have to answer to. Here, I just had to answer to Julia in the sense of being true to her and her story and winning that trust. And that was always my goal, and it continues to be.
So Nicole is writing in. She wants to know what's next on the horizon for both of you. Any new projects that you can tell us about?
Julia,
sure. I was in the process of getting ready to record a second album when all of this happened. And also, that's been on hold, obviously. But I also did some acting recently, and I found that I really enjoyed it. And I really would like to get out and do a little bit more of that. It fascinates me in the way that comedy fascinates me, and I'd like to explore that side of me. So yeah, acting, you know.
So maybe next year you'll be back at aGLIFF, but starring in a non-documentary film.
It definitely won't be a musical because you haven't heard me sing, but yes. Yeah, that would be kind of cool, or maybe a series or something like that. Sure. So if anybody's out there listening, I'm available.
Nice. Jim has a question for Julia too. You and I were talking a little bit about this before we got on the Q&A, but he wants to know, during quarantine, have you been able to do comedy sets? And he also says, whenever you can travel again, would you please come to Austin and aGLIFF to perform?
I would love to come to Austin. I wanted to go there even before the film festival, because I'm a big music fan, and I the music there is just wonderful. Have I been able to do comedy sets? Not workout sets like I would normally do if I'm breaking in new material, but I do belong to a writing group of some veteran comics, and we do meet by Zoom, and we've been able to trade material that way. And I'm just now starting to do outdoor shows, so live outdoor shows. So if you have one in Austin, I'll come down there and do that.
Well, Nicole actually writes in, and I know I will say out loud on this Q&A that I know Nicole, and Susan, you credited me with being very smart in my questions. Nicole is my go-to person when I have to do stuff like this, and I will give her fair credit. She influenced this line of questioning a lot for me. But she does say here that we have lots of theaters in Austin that would be happy to have you, Julia. And if acting is a passion of yours, I don't know if you mean on film or on stage, but we've got lots of great theaters here that are doing some really remarkable things, and we'd love to have you come down.
What I'm looking to do, if I, when I get into acting, is that I of course I would play trans women, but I want to play cis people too. I mean, I don't want to be limited to, oh, we need a trans actress, let's hire Julia Scotti. I can play both, and that's really my goal, is to sort of cross that bridge at this point and break some walls down there too. We got to bust those walls down.
You're very important, yes. Well, we're kind of coming to the end here. I did want to just let either of you take a minute if there was anything that you wanted to add to this for the audience that's watching the film.
I just want to say that on the wall behind Julia is her comedy album, which is for sale on iTunes. Julia, you want to give that a plug?
Oh, yes. The name of the album is Hello Boys, I'm Back. And it's available wherever comedy's downloadable, like Pandora, iTunes, Spotify, all of those platforms. You can get it.
Love that. Before we go, we talked a little bit about the health scare that popped up in the process of making the film. I just wanted to ask how you're doing, Julia.
I am fantastic. I have gone from not being able to walk to my mailbox without gasping for air, and I'm walking 2 miles a day and loving it. Huh?
You're on your bicycle?
I'm riding my bicycle. I quit smoking. I feel 20 years younger, maybe 30. Thank you for asking.
Susan, was there a point during or after all of that where you had to take on a larger role in sort of caring not physically, but caring for the subject you've been working with and your friendship, clearly? Did that change the direction of how you were filming or approaching the project at all?
Very much so. I mean, I think there have been times where I was on a text chain with this beautiful wreath of people who love Julia Scotti, who were all very concerned about how to take care of her and how to deliver everything that she needed. And being a part of that network was just part of the lifeblood of the film, was, caring about her and caring about her wellness. And so happy that she's rocking and rolling. I mean, I'm
very blessed. I am very, very blessed to have people in my life like I do. Yeah. Kathy Caldwell, we have to mention her.
Sure do.
Kathy Caldwell's one of my best friends, and she was there in the hospital as they were wheeling me into the. She was the last person I saw, and the first person I saw waking up. And
we meet her in the film. She's throughout the film. So.
Yes, we do.
Well, Susan, I want to say out loud that we'd love to have you in Austin as well. When we ever get back to any sense of normalcy and can get back together again, we'd love both of you wonderful ladies to come down.
We'll come together. We'll come down together.
Yes, we would love to have you.
The vision for the film on the circuit was going to be Julia traveling with me and doing stand-up. I mean, that was it was going to be that party. We were going to travel with that great party. So the adjustment we had to make was initially really heartbreaking. The idea that the live comedy wasn't going to be a part of it, and our traveling together and bringing the film and having contact with our audiences. But you know, we're meeting such great people, and we're so blessed that the film is being received so beautifully, and we're enjoying every bit of it. You know, that's exactly as Julia offered. We're in the moment, girls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
So,
well, Julia, Susan, it has just been my extreme pleasure, and I can't thank you enough for Julia sharing your life and Susan sharing your work with us here at aGLIFF, and we can't wait for the day to have you both here in Austin and have the party continue.
Thank you so much, Todd. And thank you, aGLIFF.
Yep, aGLIFF rules.
Thanks to you both, and thanks everyone else for joining us. Keep an eye on, keep an eye on our website and social media for all of the great events happening this weekend and next. The full schedule is available at agliff.org/schedule. And thanks to everyone for joining us. Thank you again, Susan and Julia.
Thank you. Bye-bye.